So I was at my previous parish, and I decided to go fishing. I was in need of parish council members. And I opened that up to everybody in the parish, but you still have to recruit. And so I've been noticing this new person and his family coming to church. His name was Matt. And Matt was working the PSR door one day, and I was over there and I saw him, and so I set the bait, and I said, Matt, you are just the person I am looking for. Would you be on the parish council? Now, the most amazing, surprising thing happened. He said yes, immediately. Those moments that happen are rare and far between. And immediately I thought of this gospel, because I always find this gospel unbelievable, that all of a sudden Peter and Andrew drop their nets and start to follow Jesus immediately, that John and James drop their nets and start to follow him. And when that happened with Matt, the scripture just leaped off the page. And what I thought was not possible happened. Now, there's always a backstory, right? I'm not going to get into that. But Matt would go on to be the president of the parish council. I think about this gospel, and Jesus has gone fishing, hasn't he? He went fishing for Peter and Simon, Peter and Andrew, and John and James. And he caught them. And then he told them, come after me, and I will make you fishers of men. Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men. Have you ever really thought about that? I will make you fishers of men and women. It's the greatest game in town. To be able to make an impact on someone's life, to be part of the change in their life, part of the impact on their faith that changes them, is one of the greatest things we can do. The most exciting thing to do, if you really think about it. So how's the fishing going? How are we doing with our children? I know in my life, my dad hooked me really good. He shared stories about St. Francis of Assisi. He told me many stories. And St. Francis became a hero of mine that had a very important part of my life and my vocation. Maybe you don't have a particular saint, but you can still talk about the effects of your faith. You have a captive audience to be able to do that. Now, when our children get older, we can still witness to them, but let's not harangue them. How are we doing with our friends? Are we showing them are we showing them Christ's selfless love? Are we showing that to the stranger? Here's one way to fish. Let me give you an example. You see somebody and you say, "How's it going?" Now you got to have enough time, and this is the real bait. And you say, "How are you really doing?" The first question just gets us pleasantries, right? Yeah, I'm doing well, all that. That's the way that I greet you when you leave. I'm expecting a pleasantry. But to really set the hook is to ask them, how are you really doing? And to be willing to listen. To go deeper in our relationships. That's what spreading the gospel is. It is then that you can begin to share your source of power, Christ. But it's only after you've listened to them, after you have shared your life, after some time of building that relationship. Now, I think that we kind of think that we're convinced that, well, nothing's going to happen. Or we're convinced that we're going to be rejected. In the story, in the first reading, we hear about Jonah. It's only Jonah's book, the book of Jonah, is only a page and a half. Read it. It's a really good book to read. And we only hear a snippet of the story. What actually happens is that Jonah is convinced that it isn't going to work. And I think he's also fearful that he will be rejected. So what does Jonah do? He goes in the opposite direction. And that's when the whale comes and swallows him and takes him back and spits him on the shore. So reluctantly, Jonah goes to Nineveh. And he goes but a day proclaiming 40 days more and Nineveh will be destroyed. He goes less than a day and the whole town repents. Was he wrong? And actually, if you really read the story, Jonah becomes mad because he really wanted these people to get smoked. Yeah. God did not want to bring fire and brimstone on these people. By no means. That's what Jonah wanted. God is not about that. Because, I make it sound like a game, It's the greatest game in town, but it's not about manipulation or tricking people. No, I do what I do. I share my faith because it's become so important to me, and it has given me so much joy that I can't help but want that for other people. And what is this about at the end? What is it all about? It's about making friends. That's what it's about, isn't it? That's the reason why it's the greatest game in town. We need friends. We need to continue to work on our friends. Our mental health depends upon it. When we isolate, when we feel we are incapable of friendship, that's when we become depressed. And it's not true. Are you fishing? Doesn't matter how old we are. Some of us say, well, I'm too old for that. If you're not stuck in a bed, you're not too old for it. At that point, it's time to offer our prayers for one another. But until that point, we are still about making friends. And you can even make friends with those nurses at that point. The challenge for us, always as Christians, to go fishing. Jesus was the great fisherman. He teaches us how to fish.